something that I say along the way will touch you. I know it. Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm Mary Crafts, and once again have the privilege of coming on with you so that we can both work together at this amazing process we call life and find out the best steps, the best information, the best things that speak to our own personal hearts as we craft our way to a meaningful life. Because isn't that the worst possible scenario? That you get to the end of life and you say, is that all there was? That was kind of useless. Or, if only I had. I can tell you now that I'm about never saying those things in my life. Even if I were to leave today, I would say, I gave my all. I did exactly what I was meant to do. And that is the greatest joy there is. I have a guest that I'm having on today for you. You're going to just actually fall in love with this guy. He's probably the most lovable teddy bear you'll ever meet in your life. Roger and I first met each other when he came and applied for a job at my old company, Culinary Crafts. And when you walked in the door, Roger, I was like, okay, could we just rubber stamp this guy and make sure that every employee is just who you were? I mean, you were so good looking, so clean cut, but not just that, you were so well mannered. You were gracious. And the thing that I always want the most is not just what they look here, but who they are here. That you were a person of service and that you were a person who wanted to bring their very best every day. And that's what you did.
You're so kind, Mary. Thank you very, very much. I absolutely loved being able to work with you, and I learned so much from you. You're one of my first business mentors, and so I really appreciate you and who you are.
Well, thank you. And right back at you, because look at you now. Look what you've done. I mean, I thought, don't you want Culinary Crafts into being a waiter to be your entire life forever? But you had a bigger vision of what Roger Comstock was going to be about. So I want to start right there and have you share with my listeners, at what point did you have a vision of what you wanted to do in life? And what are you doing in life?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to make a positive dent in the world and in people's lives. I think that's where a lot of the fulfillment that we experience in life comes from. People think that it might be from earning money or in our accomplishments. But what I've realized is that when I'm trying to focus on gratitude, growth, and giving, I find my cup is constantly full. Right? If I'm focused on other things, there's always something else to try to fill it with. Right? It's like having a mug with a hole in the bottom. But if you're focusing on helping other people live meaningful lives. I love your podcast, Crafting a Meaningful Life. I think it's perfect, right? Then you get to experience, I think, what life is really about. Zig Ziglar's the best. He says you can have everything in life that you want as long as you're willing to help other people get what they want. And I found that to be completely true in my life. So it's really, really fun with people coming into $0 startup. I always want them to be able to leave better than when they came here, whether that's an employee, somebody that I'm working with, or a student that's learning. And it's been a really, really meaningful experience. I feel like I'm living my dream job. It's a blast.
Yeah. And I'm just getting a visual of that as I think about this big, giant mug and just watching it being every day overflowing and that it never is empty. And the three things you attribute that to are gratitude. Tell them to me again. Gratitude,
growth, and giving.
Gratitude, growth, and giving. So you started a company called Zero Startup, and I'm assuming that means $0 and you can start up your dream.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I wanted to be able to have more freedom in my life. I'd worked I'd finished an MBA and then started working as an analyst. And it was fun. It was like free lunch every day, hanging out with my friends. a nice salary, but I didn't feel like I had freedom as far as time goes or income, right? And I knew I wanted that. I'd seen other people experience it, including you, and I was like, man, I've got to be able to figure out how I can also have that in my life. So I started a company called Tuple and ran that for about 6 years. Still have that company. It's been an absolute blast. It's actually, I've funded these other businesses, but I knew that what I was doing was meaningful for me and I wanted to share it with other people. And so this company that I started is teaching other individuals how to start their own version of Tuple, which is kind of cool. Their own companies.
That is such an amazing thing that I know is going to resonate with my listeners, because I have a lot of them who live in the if only I could kind of scenario, where they feel like they are in this job that's a no end, no promotion, no glory, no sense of gratitude, no one appreciates them, but they have a dream and they have a vision. And that you can help them see how to take that dream, that vision, to an actual company. What stops people? Sometimes it's fear. Well, actually, it's always fear. But most of the time, fear coupled with, I would never have the money to be able to do this. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I teach. First of all, I feel like people have to learn how to dream bigger and enjoy kind of living in their capacity, because it's really funny. Fleas, these tiny little bugs, right? They've got these itty bitty legs and they can jump really, really high. They can jump about 6 feet tall. But if you put a bunch of fleas in a jar and then put a lid on top, they'll jump up a couple times and hit their head. And if you take the lid off, they'll never get out. They're stuck. And the jar may only be 6 inches tall. And so they've got 10x plus more potential, but they just don't know that because they've been conditioned to think a particular way. And so I think a lot of times people stay where they're at because they feel like that's just what they're supposed to be doing. And our education system and the way that we're conditioned from elementary school into our kind of collegiate experience is, hey, you're supposed to go out, get a job, work for somebody else, and retire when you're 65, right? Or whatever it is. And I think that's such a bummer. And I think education currently is being widely disrupted, as it should be, because people need to know that there's so much more available for them. And what people generally find is that there's a great book by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan called 10X is Easier Than 2X. It's really, really good. And what people begin to understand is that having what they want in life is much easier than they've made it up to be in their minds. They think that it's going to be some impossible thing and that it's for somebody else and not themselves. But if they're willing just to take a step into the dark, get a little bit uncomfortable, and change their surroundings, if the flea can get out of the jar, it will inevitably recognize that its capacity is much larger than it originally thought it was. And that's what's so fun for me, watching these students who start to get an idea of what their potential is, and watching them start to accomplish that it's a huge, huge privilege and blessing. It's the best.
Yeah. And I'm totally on your page, and you know that about my story, Roger, that, you only can achieve what you dream. And even when I retired at 65, I did not stop dreaming. And so many times so many people asked me, Mary, this is when I was still in my company, as you tell your story of starting with, $150 to your name. I mean, not just to start up my company, but to my name, to pay for everything else in my life. Did you ever dream that it was going to be this, multi-million-dollar empire? I look right at him, Roger, and I say, absolutely. Because if you don't dream it, there's no way you can achieve it. And I'm sure that you have seen that in your life as you've inspired yourself as well as others just to never stop dreaming.
Yeah, I appreciate what you shared, because I think it's so important for people to understand. There's a great book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and there really is magic in it, right? This idea of wherever we're at, thinking of something like the whole idea of the SMART goal setting kind of framework that we're taught when we're kids, like something that's specific, measurable, attainable. That's the part that I wish I could crop out, the A part of the SMART goal system, because people are setting goals that they don't currently think are attainable, right? They should be a little bit out of reach. Jim Collins in Good to Great, he calls these BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals.
I love that book.
And I do too. Oh, it's so good because when people set goals that everybody else thinks they should be setting, like, hey, here's where I am and I need to, again, 2x from where I'm at this year to next year. The effort that's required to do that is just a little bit more than they're currently doing. So they don't radically change anything in their life to get to this kind of exponential growth that they're expecting or that they want. So in order to 10x their efforts and to get these big goals that seem out of reach, they're going to have to change something at a fundamental level that they're currently doing to reach these larger goals. And they've got to have an image of what that looks like and feels like in their mind. They have to step into it, let their five senses experience what it would be like. So if somebody says, hey, I want to make $100,000 in a month, or I want to be the best dad or the best husband, or never want to miss a kid's ball game or a girl's dance class, whatever it means, that individual needs to step into what that would look like, what that would feel like, taste like, smell like, sound like. And then their body starts to recognize that it's possible because they've already created it in their mind, and now they can just step into it. It's a powerful experience because it works.
Okay, so what about someone who says to you, well, Roger, I've been dreaming about this X, Y, and Z since I was a child. And I've been like really mentally thinking about it. I've been like putting pen to paper. I've even written about it, but nothing's happened. Are you sure about this? What happens to people who are truly dreaming versus those people who think they're dreaming?
Yeah, good question. There's Friedrich Nietzsche. He was quoted in the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and he said, he that has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. And so I think what generally stops people from moving forward is they lack a deep enough why as to what they're trying to accomplish, because then it becomes just a thought or an idea or a notion. And what unfortunately takes place in people's lives that have that experience is somebody else is going to have the idea and they're going to act on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people listening have had the experience of watching a commercial on TV or something, and there's this invention. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought about that like 10 years ago. I should have done that. And it's somebody else that they didn't act. And so somebody else had the idea and moved on it. And so I think what's important is people being willing to take messy action, because messy action turns into a masterpiece. No one's going to come out of the gate with a perfect framework or perfect processes or systems. I'm sure that's probably the same with you with Culinary Crafts. It turned into this absolute masterpiece, best in state for I don't even know how many years. You've got this
28, but who's counting? I'm serious.
28. That's just amazing. But I'd imagine, in fact, I remember your story. It's so inspiring because you were pulling food around in a red wagon. Right?
Yeah, selling door to door. Yeah.
Messy action.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I want to give people food, and so here's where I'm going to start, and it turns into this beautiful thing. And so I think people, when they have an idea, whether that's starting a podcast or starting a company or public speaking or whatever it is, it's just being willing to say, okay, I'm going to risk being a fool, and give this a shot. And it usually, when people are willing to act, miracles happen. And I've seen that over and over and over again in my life. It always works. It's never not worked. It's ugly and messy at first, but it always ends up being something wonderful when you get out of your comfort zone.
Oh, I love that, Roger. Out of your comfort zone. I think about just last week I was on a podcast and I said to the guy, I actually have my own podcast. He was like, oh, really? How many have you done? I think he was waiting to tout his number. And I said, I'm approaching 300. He came back and he said, you've done 300 podcasts? And I went, uh-huh. And he said, do you know how long the average podcast lasts? I said, I don't. He said 8 episodes.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa. Because they do 8 and then they realize they don't, either have any more friends who have anything to say, or they don't have anything more to say, and they haven't dreamed past their limitations. And I think that there is a difference between the people who are just dreamers and the people who combine dreaming with action. So when I think about this, if you dream, that's one thing. But if you dream deeply, those kind of dreams move you to action. And without the action piece of the dreams, then they don't come to fruition. People say, oh, I've been dreaming about that. Dreaming deeply, because that's where the action comes, which then gives us the messy looking stuff. But then keep dreaming and you keep going. I mean, look at you when you first started. I'm sure you weren't where you are today. And when you look back at your first podcast, you're like, okay, that was sick.
And I think to your point too, I love what you're sharing. You always have such meaningful things to share. I think character is always found in consistency. Like anybody can do something once or twice, but it's really not who they are until it becomes a part of what they do and what they're known for, right, on a daily basis. And what I mean by that, a great example would be somebody who starts going to the gym for the first time. It's going to be miserable for them. They're going to feel like they're in a lot of pain, have T-Rex arms, not be able to move. Their legs are going to hurt. And those people, exactly, right? And those people may think like, why am I doing this? This is painful. I'm waking up early. I have no idea why this is something that people enjoy doing. And they may give up. But the people, like you said, the people that are able to dream enough to be able to imagine what they want later, they have this image of this this person that they want to be, right? Whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, this discipline they want to have, it allows them to push past the inevitable challenges or roadblocks, obstacles that they're going to face. Ryan Holiday has a great book called The Obstacle is the Way. And people, they start to realize that these obstacles or challenges are catalysts for growth that allow them to become the best versions of themselves. Because what happens is that these people who disliked the gym at first, but were willing to take action, they start to enjoy it. Even though it's painful or challenging, they're becoming somebody different. And it's not that the gym changes, right? It's still early in the morning. It's still challenging. Their muscles can still hurt, but they change inside. They become a different person. And that happens over and over and over again in people's lives. And that's how somebody changes from somebody that is unrecognizable, years before, like almost like a caterpillar to butterfly or an acorn to an oak tree, completely different things, but the same likeness, right? Like this acorn is supposed to be an oak tree, but if you were to look at an oak tree and say you were once an acorn, it'd be hard to even imagine that took place. But it took a lot of breaking, a lot of challenges for that acorn to become the oak tree.
That's something that you and I have in common, Roger, as you well know. Is this gym thing. And oftentimes we would cross paths at the gym. And to be honest, even though there's, 50 years difference, not 50, but there's certainly 30 to 40 years difference between us, we were at the same point. I was just becoming my caterpillar so that I could be my butterfly. And you were just stepping into this, what it meant to really commit and to have grit and to show up. And should we tell people, or do you want to show them about what you look like without your shirt? I mean, seriously, you look like,
You're very kind.
But Roger, when I think about that, I had never really thought about it that way. But when I first started dreaming about being fit and healthy, and I started going to the gym, my first goal was to walk 15 minutes on the treadmill. And then after, you master that, you begin dreaming of the next goal and the next goal. And after about 2 years, I finally had the courage to go back to that other part of the gym, that which shall not be named, the weights, and to go back there and then actually start into that and to spend 3 or 4 years there. And one day, this is just one day, I was in front of my mirror in my bathroom. I was like, I think I'm looking better. I put my arms up, did the stance, and I was like, holy cow, without really even knowing what was happening. By taking the dream to action, and again and again and again, and reading books and watching videos and having a coach for a while and refining the process, I'm the strongest 70-year-old at my gym. But it was a process.
Probably in the world. Yeah, you're probably the strongest 7-year-old in the world.
That's not true. And in fact, just for kicks and giggles, you should Instagram Train with Joan. Oh my gosh. Joan started transforming herself at age 60, and she's now 85. I hope to shout that if I have triceps like that when I'm 85, this is a woman that's unbelievable to me. But she's my goal model. She's my role model now. I have something I'm working for. I'm still dreaming of being trained with Joan at 85. You know what I mean? And it's moving me to action. And I think that this piece that you're able to offer people now, Roger, is you're giving them a roadmap. Okay, let's dream it. And what are the actions then to create it? And that's a real gift because you've walked that road. So let's tell people now a little bit more about the company that really has your heart and soul right now, and the piece that you're able to offer others because of your own growth.
Yeah, it's I've always loved teaching. My initial major in college was elementary education. I love the process of watching people have light bulbs turn on in their minds and watching them kind of have those aha moments. But being a teacher doesn't pay very well at all. And I had also wanted to teach religious stuff, a seminary or institute. But again, it doesn't pay very well. And so that's why I started this initial company that I did. So this company that I've got my heart and soul into right now, $0 startup, kind of stems from the fact that I love people so much, and I love to teach. And so I really am living my dream right now because I've found something that made a ginormous difference in my life, and I'm sharing it with individuals and helping them experience more freedom. I call people that are kind of in my tribe lifestyle legends. It's everywhere. People can see it's on my hat. It's in the back here. And it's because I want them to understand that they don't need to wait until what the world considers the best time to start enjoying life. You know, they say, when I retire, I'll do this. They're constantly chasing this kind of this carrot, right, that seems too far out there. I think if somebody wants to go golf, they should be able to have a lifestyle that allows them to go golf right now. If they want to travel, then they should go travel right now and make money while they're on their vacation. We teach people how to create recurring income through something called service-based arbitrage. And a lot of service-based companies, like an HVAC company or an electrician or a plumber or a dentist or a lawyer, they're very, very good at what they do in their trade. They're super good at it. But because they're so focused on their particular art or trade, they generally have not learned how to market their businesses, right? A lot of these HVAC guys are good old boys, right? Or good old girls, and they don't know the customer acquisition piece of the company. And so what my students learn to do is go to somebody, let's say there's a guy named Bob the plumber. One of my students may say, hey, Bob, let us run all of your marketing for you. You don't need to worry about anything. And so Bob will say, yeah, I've been needing to do that, right? I've wanted to offload this for a long time and have some help. So he offloads it to the student, but then I teach the student to subcontract all of that work out to people I call pocket-sized partners. So now the student isn't doing anything. It's kind of like real estate with a property manager.
Right.
So the student can go on vacation. He's got or she's got other people doing all of the work for them, and they're just creating a bunch of recurring income over time. It's a lot of fun.
I love that. That is so brilliant. I remember the day I walked into my dentist office, and suddenly, for the first time since I'd been there 6 months before, there was all of this multi-level stuff everywhere in his office, on shelves, at the front counter, by the thing here. And So when I went back to sit down, I said, what's with that? I said, I've never known you to do a multi-level thing. And he said, well, Mary, the truth is, while you're sitting here in my chair, are you still making money? I thought for a minute and I went, yeah. Because I'm thinking about my whole building, all the people, the events that are happening, the chefs that are cooking, the staff, and they're doing events while I'm sitting in a dentist chair. And he said to me, Mary, the difference between you and me is unless I'm sitting here drilling, I'm not making any money. I thought about that for the first time and thought, wow, that's a big deal to be a dentist, a renowned dentist, to have made great money your whole life, but you can't step away and still continue to make money. So you're teaching people how to take what they see as their one and only cottage industry business, and whether they're a dentist or a house cleaner, and turn that into something where they can walk away and still maintain or even increase their income. Did I get that right?
We're actually teaching students to go serve those people. So let's say there was a guy that was an HVAC owner. He or she probably doesn't know marketing. And so one of my students would go to that owner and say, let us offload all of your marketing for you. And then they get a subcontractor, a pocket-sized partner to do all of the marketing. And now they're out, and they generally make about 50 to 95% margins on a recurring basis. And so this allows them to be able to create an asset, a business that can pay for whatever they'd like, any of their liabilities that they have, or use in investing, or whatever they want, a fun car. And it's a great model for people because it is not capital intensive, and it doesn't inherently require risk. A lot of times when people think of recurring or passive income, they generally think of real estate, which is great. And it's a good tool, especially in the long run, because of the tax benefits and the equity that's built in the assets.
Right.
The challenge with that is that it's a mega pay to play in the beginning. And it's not so conducive to cash flow the way that it's kind of glamorized to be. You have to purchase a lot of homes or a lot of property in order to create a large amount of cash flow, especially in this market right now. Let's say somebody bought a $500,000 house. If it's just an investment property, they're going to want $100K down. And then you're probably only going to cash flow about $200 a month because rates are like 7.2%. Mortgage is $3,000. They can rent it for $3,200. And so that means somebody just spent $100,000 and 30 years of a mortgage to only be making $200 a month. With $0 startup,
numbers don't work. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't. And so it's really meaningful to help people kind of clue into this idea that you can create a very successful recurring revenue business without any of the risk. And the reason it's called $0 startup is because I teach people something called the $0 framework. And what that is based on is this idea of we find people first who need help, and then we get paid before money goes out of the account in these deals. So Bob, the plumber, needs help. He pays the student after they've been paid. Then they subcontract out. So they're never in a risky position. They're never in a spot where money hasn't come into the account before they found somebody who needs help. So they're always making money before money leaves. And so they're in a great spot.
I think about that with myself as I market Crafting a Meaningful Life podcast. I think of the number of hours I spend. If I'm going to promote this on social media, I can't just once a week post my podcast. I've got to be posting once, twice a day about how I'm crafting my life and what's out there and shining a light on different things. And it's time consuming. And so but now I'm in a position, I'm retired. It's not such a big deal, but if this is what I was doing and I was doing, say, life coaching as my main deal, and I was spending all of my time trying to get it marketed and never actually coaching, then it would be never getting ahead of anything that I'm the time. And I want time extra for my family to run my own business, but I'm being overwhelmed with the marketing aspect. Oh, okay. I'm beginning to put this together, Roger. I like this. This is such a wonderful way to help people see a vision that they may not have currently.
It's fun. It's so fun. And the students find a lot of success. It's been fun to watch what they're doing. And I encourage them to keep their full-time jobs while they're doing this. So it starts as a side hustle, but can become a full-time thing for them if they want. But I encourage them to make a bunch of money first, and then when they feel like, hey, I've got enough coming in, now I can leave my job, which was the opposite of what I did. I left cold turkey, and that it worked very well, but it was scary because I had to get deals. Yeah, that's right.
I love that part. I love that, but the other piece of that, Roger, is that because of your dream and because of what you knew that you were going to do in this life, that dream led you to action. And there's a piece there that you kind of just touched on that I think is crucial. And that is the leap of faith, the fear aspect, that I never would have reached the top of Kilimanjaro if I hadn't been willing to let go of the rock that I was hanging on and make that jump across to the next rock. So talk to me a little bit about how that leap of faith enters in and how you discern, this is the bigger part, how you discern between rational fear that's here to help you and fear that is just debilitation.
Yeah, I love that question. I'm going to read a quote if that's okay.
You bet.
It's really, really good. It's by a guy named William Hutchison. Let's see here. It's probably my favorite quote of all time. And it says, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
I love that.
Me
we
too.
both love it.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good because people need to know that when we're making big decisions, there's always inhibition. It's just par for the course. I don't know if there's ever been a student that got into the program without feeling like, oh man, this is scary. I've never done something like this. But inevitably they get in and, most of them are like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's so great to learn how to experience more freedom and to have these tools. Right. And so I think in our lives, when we have, getting married is one of those things. I didn't get married till I was 32. It's one of those decisions that was really big, but man, it was the best choice I've ever made in my whole life. My sweetheart's my best friend in the whole world. I love her with all of my heart, and I can't imagine what my life would be without her. But it was the scariest thing I've ever done, And so I'm really grateful for the inhibitions or fear that's there, because it allows us to be able to enjoy what courage feels like, or bravery, because there's no such thing as courage or bravery without fear or inhibition. Those two things exist as a willingness to push past the scare tactics that life kind of throws at us. And we end up always, an individual always become a better version of his or herself if they're willing to face fear and look it in the eye and move past it. When we cower down to fear, it always minimizes our growth or our potential. It's a great experience to push past it.
It brings a smile to my face to have you talk about that, because I can remember watching you and thinking, Is Roger ever going to get married?
Yeah,
And
I
just
was wondering.
like dating all these women who seem to be wonderful women, and yet then you get to a point and it's just like, oh God, I don't know. And I just thought, okay, is this lack of willing to make the commitment? Is this fear, or is this patience and knowing the time? And now seeing you, I know it was patience. I know it was you waiting for the time. And when I see you and your wife, I just think, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to find that. I feel like I've had the same patience, but I just had to wait a lot longer.
Well, and I'll tell you too, I want to be vulnerable with people because I want people to understand that life is generally more challenging than it looks like on social media. And so,
Oh, absolutely.
right, like it wasn't just patience for me. I went to years of therapy. I needed a lot of help. I was struggling with commitment, and I had a really challenging childhood, and that helped me to grow. It was difficult, but people need to understand too. Sometimes moving to the next level requires being willing to say, "I need help." It's cool in business. It's the same way. I've had great mentors, you included, along the way, that allowed me to be able to level up. And it requires a willingness to say, okay, I don't know exactly what to do or how to solve this problem, and I need help. For me, you were right. Like I would date, I'd get so scared and I would back away. And it was something I finally said, like I need help with this because it's a negative pattern, right? That wasn't serving me very well. And it really was meaningful to be able to recognize that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to recognize that we need other people in life to be successful. And that's been a really meaningful thing in business too. Sorry, it chokes me up a little bit because people think, they'll look at my social media and they'll be like, oh man, he's so perfect, or he's always so happy, or like what all this stuff, but they don't realize like life is no respecter of persons. It's hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be hard. It's just like the gym, like we talked about earlier. It's the weight that allows us to be able to, it's the resistance that allows us to develop and to grow. And just like that acorn, it's the resistance, breaking out of its shell, putting roots down, weathering the storm that allows it to become this oak tree. And so people need to realize it's not an overnight thing, and life's not a get rich quick scheme, and it's not a cheap experience. It's something that requires a price to be paid, but that price is so worth it, right? That whatever people need to do to become a better version of themselves is worth it. It's meaningful.
I can't tell you how grateful I am for you. Because vulnerability, the willingness to be naked in front of other people. And I'm not talking physically naked. I'm talking about emotionally naked in front of people. To be able to bear all is a gift that few obtain in this life. But the value of that, when you're able to step in and say, this is where I'm at, or this is where I was. And what I discovered is that when I first cracked open the shell of vulnerability and being able to say, okay, it's not all a bed of roses. This is where I'm at. And this is what I'm struggling with. And I'm here not because of my spouse or troubles at work or whatever. I'm here because of me. I'm here because I have lessons to learn that I haven't learned yet. And what I feared for so long, Roger, was going to make other people reject me, was the very thing that allowed people to embrace me. There is that fear as we, are on social media that people go, wow, I'm not as cool as they are. I could never be their friend, or I could never accomplish what they have. And yet if they were to look behind the curtain and see the wizard with all of their wheels trying to keep all the balls in the air, they would realize, hey, they're just like me. And I love that you're able to do that and share that with people. And you then made the next step is So how do I get help? How do I move past? Thank you. Thank you for sharing that piece. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, and anything that's meaningful that people see or observe, these businesses that have found wild amounts of success, if you were able to pull back the curtain, you realize that the front yard looks very neatly kept with like a front porch swing and everybody smiling, drinking like lemonade, but the backyard is on fire. Right, like, and they're trying to put it out with a fire hose, and that's the way it is for everyone. I've got a lot of friends in business like you do, and there's no exception. Not one person I know where everything is always going perfect. Right, there's always new things to learn. There's always ways to grow, and I hope people listening, I hope this gives them a very a lot of hope. Right, because they realize that we're not different than other people.
Yeah.
We and if we look at people like Phil Knight, who founded Nike, people think, oh man, Nike's such a great company. He got so lucky. But what we learned about Phil was that he was purchasing sneakers from Japan and hoarding them in his parents' basement and selling them at athletes. You know, and he was struggling for 17 years and calling his dad in a brown recliner every night, being like, what should I do? And all this stuff. And then after all of that, Nike became what it did. And so people that are wanting to build something, everyone has the ability and the potential to do it. It's just getting started and having resilience and grit enough to get back up when you get socked in the stomach.
I always say I suffered from the kitchen drawer syndrome. And what that is, when people would walk into my house, everything seemed in its place. There's a place for, as my mother's favorite saying, there's a place for everything and everything in its place. And that's how my house looked until you opened the kitchen drawer. And every single one of my drawers or closets or anything looks like they put a stick of dynamite in there. And I was more worried about how everything looked than the functionality of the drawer. And when I finally realized that about me, I was more worried about the facade rather than the functionality of my heart. I began to change and shift. And I thought, well, what would make that drawer better? I could buy an organizing tray and put stuff in it. And the solution seemed so obvious once I stopped and thought about it. Or I could do this. I could put this here. And how about only having this over here? It's the same thing when I began to realize that having a facade wasn't any magic key. But I had to start looking inside. And where are the solutions? And where do they lie? Are they in getting help? Are they keeping a journal? And I can tell you, Roger, that's the one thing that you and I are the most alike in. We've both come back full circle and realized the biggest key we have to organizing our inner self is gratitude. Yes. You can want for nothing more once you have the gratitude. Yeah. Absolutely. So as we close, Roger, what would be your one gem, that little piece that you want listeners to put on a Post-it note and look at for the rest of the week? What would be the piece that you want to leave with them that most inspired you and still does?
I really feel like an individual's self-image is what's projected into their future and determines who they become. There's a great book I would highly recommend in closing here. I've read it multiple times. Mine's like duct tape. Because it's just so good. It's by a guy named Maxwell Maltz. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, yes.
It's very, very good because what data has shown and science has proven is that an individual cannot live outside of his or her self-image. And so if an individual doesn't believe he or she has the ability to accomplish something, they never will. But the minute an individual says, I am going to do this, and I know I can, I don't know what the path looks like, but I'm going to do it, they will get there. Inevitably, they will get there. And I think that requires some courage, some clarity, some consistency, right? These things all allow an individual to transform literally into a new creature, right? New person. Because they've seen in themselves something, that was they couldn't see before, right? And that's that will allow them to kind of reach outside what they were able to accomplish previously. And so I would just say, believe in yourself, right? Know that whatever you're wanting to accomplish is more than possible. It's just thinking about it, ruminating over it, and then taking action towards it. Change your self-image, you'll change your future.
Amen, Roger. Amen. I dreamed myself and saw myself and my future self as a fit, healthy woman long before I ever got there. And I dreamed it every day of my life. I lived and breathed what that would look like, what that would feel like, and how I could do things and accomplish things I never had before. Thank you, Roger, for being here. And to my listeners, there was one thing Roger said right at the end I want you to remember. After listening to this today, what is the one thing you've realized about you and your tomorrow that you didn't know before listening? What vision do you now see that is different, that is changed? Listening, you can listen to me all day long and nothing will change. But listening and dreaming and then moving to action, fearless action, is what will craft your meaningful life. Thanks for being with me again. Love to all of you.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.